What is going on? What is going on? As you can see, the Z card today, specifically the Nissan 350Z. One of the only good cars Nissan ever made, frankly. Buy one yourself. Let's go through this next one. Here we have a video of just let you hear that VQ trumpet sing. How would you describe the difference between a DE and an HR sound? I haven't really paid that much attention. Cool. What is going on, y'all? Onward Cars back again with another car buyer's guide. Today we are going to be going over the Nissan 350Z. As you can see, this was Nissan's, well, the 5th generation of the Z. It was called the Fairlady Z in Japan, but in the United States they had to give it a more American, more masculine, more cooler name. So 350Z. Before, obviously, it was a 240Z, well, 300ZX, which was kind of a Z, and then the 350Z. Then after this, obviously, you have the 370Z, which went on for such a long time. The 370Z was literally kind of like a facelifted 350Z, and it carried on for way longer than the 350Z ever did. But like almost like 14, 15 years the 370Z went on for. Crazy. But yeah, so we're going over the 350Z today, the predecessor to that. In my opinion, this car is probably one of the best cars Nissan ever made, simply because it was just a really good package. The engine it offered was big, powerful, and reliable, you know, for the most part. For what it was used for, it was pretty reliable. Also, it was just cheap to maintain. And that carries on to the prices we'll see today in a minute. The prices for these are pretty reasonable for what you get. And on top of that, these cars are hands down the best drift cars. I don't care what people say. They're the best platform in order to go sideways. So yeah, let's get into the features, options, or actually, before we do that, let's get into the Discord. If you haven't joined my Discord already, well, I don't even have it up here. Hold on. Let me get this all fired up. So if you haven't joined the Discord already, all you gotta do is hit that link in the description. I draw winners out from the Discord. So if you want to win 50 bucks, hit that link down in the description, and I'll probably do another drawing either next Monday or the Monday after that. I forget what I said, but I'll be doing another drawing for $50. And all you got to do is join the Discord, like and comment on the video, as well as subscribing to the channel, and as well as sharing a video with somebody else. Now, I guess I'll adjust this. I can hear the sound is very echoey in this room. It's a new studio, and so there's nothing in here really, and I don't have the sound deadening equipment or anything really to fill the room, so I'm working on the sound issue. And the camera issue, it's like really close, and I'm not sure why. I think it's because I'm using my laptop, and I'm using a different camera processing program to do the cutout background because it doesn't have the right graphics card that my desktop has. So we're gonna have to just bear with that for a little bit. I kind of want to go home back to my other studio so I can have the best quality, but I'm here on the road right now, so we build it as we fly it. Let's see what the chat says. Clean Whip said HR revs is 7,600. I think the DE is only 67 or 7,000. Yeah, it's something like that. So yeah, so HRs are always going to have that higher pitch sound. Okay, I thought maybe they sounded different throughout the whole rev range, but in terms of the HR just having a higher red line, you do get a different sound. I understand that. Yeah, but they are definitely all beat. Now, I try to find some ones that weren't as beat, but it was very hard. That's another thing with this car, is that it was a daily car for most people. People put hundreds of thousands of miles on these cars, and it shows on the market. You really can't find a low mile example for a reasonable price. All the low mile examples are going to be more of collector cars. So you want to make sure that when you're looking at these cars, you really pay attention to how the car was treated during its lifetime. A lot of these have been beat. Shout out to Clean Whips. They have been abused. So if you can find one that is not abused for a reasonable price, you're in for a treat. They're pretty rare nowadays, but that seems to happen with cars that are appreciated and loved. They start to go rare. They literally get used so much in one period of time that it seems like overnight they're all gone. That's kind of what it seems like with the 350Z. You don't really see them on the road too often in good condition. However, when I looked up online, there's a lot of examples to pick from, and so you'll definitely be able to find the one you want. So other than that, yeah, like the video, comment down below, also subscribe to the channel. I'll give you like 2 seconds to do that. So yep, all right, cool. You got that done. Thank you. And let's get on to the show. Moving on to the features, options, and problems for the Nissan 350Z. All right. Cool. All right, we got that here. Now I just gotta get this. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm like fixing something real quick. Let's get on with the features of the Nissan 350Z. So the model span went from 2003 to 2009, with the Roadster coming out a year later, so 2004, with a facelift in around 2006, 2007 model year. So basically for the pre-facelift cars, you have the VQ35DE, and for the facelifted cars, you have the VQ35HR. Somewhere in the middle, around 2005 and a half to around the year of 2006, they offered the rev up engine, which is a higher revving version of DE, and that was available on some models in 2005 and 2006. We'll get into that in a second. But as you can see, for the power numbers from 02 to 04 or 05 ish, depends on if you got the 35th anniversary or track models, but 02 to 05 made 287 horsepower and 274 pound-feet of torque. The 30th anniversary slash track models, which had the rev up engine, made 300 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. So if you notice, the torque actually went down while the revs went up, well, the horsepower went up, and this is because the revs actually were increased at the expense of having less down low torque. And then finally, we have the HR engine, which was available from 2006 to 2009, we'll just say that. And that made 306 horsepower and 268 pound-feet of torque. A big difference of the HR engine is that it has 2 intakes as opposed to 1. So tuners usually prefer the DE engine because it has 1 intake. It's easier to work with. But people who want the nicest example are obviously going to get the HRs. Those are obviously going to be newer as well. So they're just going to come in a more complete package. What else do we have here? The facelift was in 2006. This included a redesigned front bumper, new bi-xenon headlights, and an LED taillights. And then let's see. I don't know what happened here. Yeah, there was just a space there. They added aluminum trim as well, and steering wheel controls were available. This is for the facelift 2006 plus. And then all the cars are going to be rear-wheel drive. You can get them either in 6-speed manual or a 5-speed automatic, and they weighed between 3,200 and 3,600 pounds, depending on the trim. If you got one with a lot of options, obviously it's going to be heavier. And on top of that being a convertible, you get the idea. Cool. All right, let's move on to the options. There aren't really too many options for these cars. In fact, I wouldn't call them options at all. They're just trim packages. However, the trim packages do change year to year, kind of. There's like some groupings. I'll make this a little bit smaller too, because it's way too big. All right. No, that's way too small. Oh, well, I don't know what happened to the top of this. This is annoying. Okay. Yeah, I hate Paint. I'm gonna say that again. Shout out to Paint for being one of the hardest programs ever to use. Even though I'm kind of using it for a weird purpose right now. What is going on here, man? It's not pasting all my stuff. Give me 1 second. Going through some technical difficulties. There we go. Cool. All right. So we got all the options here. So 2003 to 2004 and a half, 5.5, really, these should really be a year later for these 2 options, really. But it kind of varies depending on the market, obviously. But in the United States, these should kind of be, well, yeah, it should be around 2005-ish, but nevertheless, there's just months difference. So for the first generation of the 350Z, you had the base, you had the enthusiast, you had the performance, you had the touring, and you had the track. These are going to be your 5 trim levels. You couldn't choose the options. You could only choose a trim level. So the base one had 17-inch wheels, a 6-speed manual only, no viscous limited slip differential, and no cruise control. The enthusiast added cruise control, HID headlights, aluminum pedals, auto dimming rearview mirror, the viscous LSD, traction control system, something, I forget what TCS stands for, actually, give me 1 second, and manual and automatic transmissions were available for the enthusiast. Performance, they added the VSC. They had 18-inch wheels and was only available in a 6-speed manual. The touring adds leather seats with power adjustment, a Bose sound system, as well as an optional DVD nav system. This was also available with 6-speed manual or 5-speed automatic. And then the track package adds 18-inch rays, which were upgraded from these regular 18-inch wheels. So these ray wheels, it has Brembo brakes, underbody aero, and a hatch spoiler. This was only available with a 6-speed manual. For the 2004.5 2005, it really should be like 2005.5. The suspension was updated. They also introduced the 35th anniversary edition, which had the Brembo brakes from the track. It had the 300 horsepower rev-up motor. Instead of the 287, the regular DE, this had the rev-up motor with 300 horsepower. It had leather, Bose, and nav. So basically the 35th anniversary edition was kind of a track package and a touring combined in one, which is super desirable in my opinion. For 2006, this is when they received the facelift. You had the base model, you had the enthusiast model, you had the touring, you have the track, and you have the grand touring. So as you can see, they dropped the performance, but they added the grand touring, which is kind of what the 35th anniversary was. So the 35th anniversary was dropped and the grand touring replaced it. Same thing, but in terms of what it's equipped with, the base obviously is going to be pretty much similar to the base for the previous generation of 350Z. So bi-xenon headlights, HIDs, are included in this one. Wow, I said all that just to say that this got changed. So bi-xenon HIDs were added to the base model for the 2006 This is when it got facelifted, so these became standard. It has 18-inch wheel standard, 6-speed manual for the base only, and no viscous limited slip differential. The Enthusiast added TCS, the viscous limited slip differential, cruise control, auto dimming rear view mirror, aluminum pedals, aluminum audio controls on the steering wheel, and it was available in manual or automatic. The Touring added the VDC for only the 6-speed manual, and it also has the Bose with MP3, leather seats, and with power and heat, and it was available in a manual or an automatic. Then you have the Track package, which adds Brembo brakes, underbody aero, hatch spoiler, and the lightweight raised wheels, and it only came in a manual transmission. And then finally, the Grand Touring was obviously is the Track, which adds Brembos, or it's a Touring that adds Brembos and raised from the Track model, underbody aero, Bose sound, leather seats, and it's both available in an automatic and a manual. And then finally, the final years of the car, 2007, 2008, they changed the trims again. They dropped the which ones did they drop? Okay, let me just read them out. They made the base, they have the Enthusiast, the Touring, the Grand Touring, and the Nismo. So they dropped the Track and added the Nismo. The Nismo kind of became a better Track package. So the base, same as before, bi-xenon HIDs, 18-inch 5-spoke wheels, 6-speed manual, no VLSD or cruise control. And then Enthusiast adds the TCS VLSD, cruise control, auto dimming rear view aluminum pedal, or auto dimming rear view mirror, aluminum pedals, aluminum audio controls on the wheel, and it was available in manual or automatic. Touring adds VDC, which is only for the 6-speed manual. These are going to be the same packages as the 2006 models. As you can see, Touring has Bose, leather seats, power heat, available with the manual or the automatic. And then you have the Grand Touring, which replaced, what is going on here? Oh, sorry. I was tripping. Grand Touring, which adds Brembo and raised from the Track model. So because they dropped the Track model, they still carried on the Grand Touring, so you get those Track model things without having to get a Nismo, which is pretty cool. So underbody aero, Bose sound, leather seats, manual or automatic. And then finally we have the Nismo, the most desired package of all, because simply the name, obviously. Also because, you know, it's actually a good car. Nismo adds Brembo brakes, Nismo aero package, OEM Nismo suspension, lightweight rims, and only available in manual transmission. It also has a pretty cool interior spec as well. So I know that was a lot. I just kind of read off of a sheet, which is really not good for presentations, but this is all the information you need to know. I'd say that once you get down the packages or the trim levels that the cars come in, it's really easy to differentiate or pick which car you want. For me, I need a Touring or a Grand Touring. I don't really want a Track because I want the leather seats. That's up to you though. I like having a sports car as luxury as possible. I'm not a Track guy. I'm not caring about the lightest car or anything like that. I want like to drive in comfort. Most of my time on the road is on the road. It's not on a track. So most of the time in a car is on a road, not on a track. So I don't really care about all this other stuff. I just want the most luxurious and most optioned out car for the right price. And I think a Grand Touring is a good combination of all of that. If not, a Touring is also good, but the Grand Touring adds the Brembo brakes, which are highly desirable on these cars. Cool. All right, let's go to the problems, because there are quite a few problems you need to address with these cars. However, you'll see that a lot of these, like all the problems have kind of been addressed, because these cars are mostly, for the most part, they're beat on, for lack of better terms. These cars take abuse, but that goes to show how good the car is if it can last this long and you still see this many that are still being for sale. But again, it's not the best. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the most reliable car ever. Okay, so first of all, oil consumption. This is a problem across all engines, DE or HR. However, it happens to be the worst on the rev-up DE engines, simply because you're squeezing that engine a little bit more for power, and this just comes with more wear, which leads to higher oil consumption. On the early DEs and the HRs, you'll see that the oil consumption is still there, but it's not as bad as the rev-up engines. Hey, shout out to Jacob Black in the chat. And Clean Whips, yeah. The BMW M6 is the best. Oh my gosh, I keep getting out of this frame, man. This camera is too zoomed in. Oh, God, I don't know. Like, whatever, man. We build it as we fly. All right. You also have the problem for the timing chain guides and tension failure. So you want to make sure that the timing chain isn't making any noise, you don't hear any rattles. This isn't really a problem. This usually fails on cars that have been neglected in terms of service or oil changes. You just want to make sure that when you're looking at this car, it doesn't have any extra timing chain noise. These usually fail around 180,000 miles, so keep that in mind. You want to make sure that if you're looking at a higher mile car that, you know, you just want to, I don't know, I would actually recommend staying away from the higher mile examples. Like 180K plus seems a lot to me, especially for these. But if you were to get one, that's something you have to take a look at. It's the timing chain guides. I don't know how you're going to take a look at it, but just take a listen to see if it's making any noise. Or if the car isn't responsive or it's in a limp mode or the engine light's on, that could be a timing chain issue. It could have skipped timing or something like that. But if the timing chain guides are just starting to fail, you really won't see any real symptoms besides the fact that you're going to hear some extra noise. Let's see. Oil pressure sensor failure. This is another thing that can cause rough, just not really good throttle response or rough idle. The oil pressure sensor failure, this just causes a bunch of things to go out of whack. Make sure that, you know, that works. It's not really something you can really check specifically. You just see if it doesn't work. So check the codes, obviously. The crankshaft position sensor is the same thing. If the crankshaft position sensor is bad, the car will have trouble starting and it probably won't idle right either. It's just gonna have a lot of running problems. The crankshaft position sensor is a necessary item on cars. Pre-2007 were prone to transmission synchro wear. So 2006 and earlier, if your transmission or if your car is higher mileage and it's a manual transmission, you just want to make sure that it is going to all gears smoothly, especially when you're at full throttle or high up in the RPMs. You want to make sure that there's no grinding or it doesn't like shove you back out of gear. Just make sure that it goes in there smoothly and without any extra effort. Compared to other gears, make sure they're all even as well. You also have the fuel damper failure. So there's this thing called a fuel damper and it evens out the pulses of the fuel that come up through the fuel pump and into your engine so that it gives you a more smoother flow of fuel, if that makes sense. And so these fuel dampers, they fail and you'll start to get like your car won't run right because the flow of fuel isn't consistent. It's just, you're just gonna have to really run your car through like a code machine to see what is popping up. Highly suggest you buy one, especially if you're going out to look at cars. You also have issues with the drive shaft clicking. This is not really a big issue. All you got to do really is just put some grease in the splines, just hook up the grease thing to the nipple and let it rip. You know, it's not really that hard to fix. A lot of people find that the drive shaft makes that noise when they're testing out cars and they are often turned off from them because of the noise. But if you know what you're doing, all you got to do is just put it up on a lift and fill up the grease hole. Other issues are rusted arches and underbodies. You want to make sure that you really take a look at the archways of these cars. They are prone to rusting. So where the wheel well meets the edge, that can also split, which lets moisture into the pinch, which is like where your fender is, the inside of the fender meeting the outside of the fender. If that's open and exposed, rust can go up inside your fender and completely destroy it. Same thing with the underbody. You just want to make sure that there is no big spots of rust that are weak. You know, poke around, see if it's still structurally sound. You want to make sure that this car does not have much rust at all. Let's see what else. You also have issues with the trunk poppers. This is random, but the trunk poppers, same thing with the struts in the trunk. You want to make sure that the trunk opens up when you unlatch the trunk. It should pop up a little bit so you can actually grip the edge of the trunk and lift it up. If the trunk poppers don't work, you'll open the trunk and then you'll have to literally open the trunk and push it up at the same time. It doesn't open for you, so you can slide your hands underneath. It sounds weird and doesn't sound like a big issue just describing it, but it is a problem. If your hands are full and you pop the trunk, you can't actually grab it without like grabbing your spoiler. And if you don't have a spoiler, then it's just going to be really hard to grab. You also have the clutch slave cylinder is prone to fail in these cars on higher mile manual cars. This is kind of a random thing. You can't really predict when a clutch slave cylinder is going to fail. The clutch pedal will just go to the ground once and then you just not be able to use your clutch. So you just want to make sure that the clutch is good and just has good response. These are things that you may be able to tell during a test drive, but they could also be surprise failure like a month into ownership. So you just want to make sure you ask about the clutch slave cylinder, ask if it's ever been done. If the mileage is not really matching up with the service interval, basically, if they haven't done any sort of clutch work and the car has 100,000 miles, just know you're probably gonna have to replace a clutch, a slave cylinder, and do all of that in the next couple, 10,000 miles. You also have the gallery gaskets. So these are a fancy name for the timing chain cover gasket. These are also prone to failure. These can leak, so you just don't want oil leaking from anything really, not specifically this car, but yeah, that's where it leaks. It's a popular place. You also have the kidney bracket rotting. So in the back, if you look underneath the car, it's hard to describe, but there are these arms that come out and they connect to the rear wheels and they attach to the body. And where they attach are these things called kidney brackets. They become rusty, and oftentimes you'll see that they often like have a lot of play and aren't even really secure. So that can really lead to a lot of issues with your handling of your car, and it could potentially be dangerous. You also have your banana arms slash bushing. So these are going to be your lower control arms on the front of the car. These banana arms, specifically the bushings, can go bad, but you'll probably just end up changing the whole arm anyway, because the bushings are usually just built into the arm. That's how things are these days. So you want to make sure that the front lower control arms are good and there's no clunking when you hit, you know, like bumps or like you're going up into like a curb or something. You have to drive over that little inch. What else? Window seals. You want to make sure that when you're driving the car, the windows are frameless because it is a coupe, pillarless, whatever you want to call it. So the window has to make a seal with the car when you close the door. So the window actually has to come down when you unlatch it, and when you close it, it has to slide up. So it makes a seal. Make sure that action is working. Also make sure when you're driving the car around, you don't hear extra wind noise. Same thing, or going with the windows, you want to make sure that the windows work and they're not going up and down really slowly. That could mean that your window regulators or window motors are starting to fail. And then finally, you want to make sure the coolant is a proper coolant color. You want to make sure it's not cloudy or burnt looking, because that could mean that the car was overheated at some point. Overall, you just want to make sure that the condition of the car is good. These cars didn't have the best interior in terms of materials and standing the test of time. So it's easy to tell cars that have been beat on versus cars that haven't, because cars that haven't are going to be really clean and cars that have been beat on are going to be super dirty. There's a huge variance with these cars on the market. So it's easy to pick one that it's easy to tell if a car has been driven hard or not. What are y'all talking about in the chat? Oh, y'all are just talking about V6s versus V8. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the Mercedes V6. That's a potent engine. But, you know, I haven't had a V6 since I was a teenager. Anyway, so that goes over the features, options, and problems. Let's take a look at the brochures real quick. See what we're working with in terms of material. See what Nissan provided us with back in the day. So here we go. This is a 2008. Let's look at the 2004 brochure first. As you can see, 2004 was when the convertible was first released, so you can see it right here in the brochure. For the convertible, we only have enthusiast and touring. I didn't even go over the convertibles that much because I really don't like the Z convertibles. It's up to you though, but just letting you know, there's two designations for the convertible, enthusiast and touring. Touring is going to be kind of the same as the regular touring. However, it's just going to have a little bit more because there's only two. You have enthusiast, which is going to be more base level, and touring, which is going to be nicer. The touring obviously is going to be a little bit nicer than the touring in the coupe because it has to encompass a lot more range. And same thing with the enthusiast. It's not going to be a base level. It's going to have a little bit more than base, but not too much. Let's see. And then these are going to be the trim levels for the coupe. You can see this is the regular 350Z. This is going to be the base. Then we have the enthusiast, then the performance, touring, and track. Again, this is going to be for the 2004 model year. So this is going to be the first edition or first rendition of Z's that came out. And we can see the only available option at this time in 2004 was going to be the nav, as well as the auto dimming rear view mirror for the base model. However, you really don't even see too many base models. I don't know if they were all crashed or all beat up, but not really too sure why you don't really see that many. You can also see airbags, drivers and passenger side impact airbags, and roof mounted curtain side impact airbags. Also options. Highly recommend you get that stuff, but again, you really can't tell unless you look at a build sheet for the car. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Z convertible at all. And it's crazy, you barely ever see them on the road. I don't know if people are embarrassed to drive them or they're really not that many. But when I was looking at them online, you really saw a lot of them for sale. So I don't know, not a fan though. Here we can see the 2008, so this is going to be the latest brochure. We have the coupe first. They realized that they made a mistake the first time putting the convertible first. Well, I guess they put the convertible first because it was new for that model year, but the convertible here is second. Here for the coupe, we have the base 350Z, enthusiast, touring, grand touring, and Nismo, like I mentioned earlier with the trim levels for the 2007, 2008 model years. And then down here are going to be the trim levels for the convertible. So we have the enthusiast, touring, and grand touring. The touring and grand touring, let's see, I just want to make sure that the Grand Touring, what does that come with in terms of performance stuff? Does it come with any Brembo brakes or anything like the Coupe does? Because I really don't see. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah, no, I don't know. Anyway, let's keep it moving. What else can we see here? Yep, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Nissan. I love the Japanese brochures. They're always so simple and direct, and they put all the information in something very easy to read. Unlike the Italians, which is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, they make their brochures look like art, and you have to interpret them rather than just giving me information about the car. But anyway, I digress. Let's get on to the ads, y'all's favorite part of the show. Shout out to the 5 people in the chat. I don't have my horn today, so you can just imagine the horn. I don't have my butt. I wish I brought that thing, man. I was not prepared. Anyway, let's move on to the ads. So looking at our first ad on Facebook, I brought up an example of something you really don't want to buy. This one is obviously in really bad shape, but we'll take a look at it. You can see it's been beat up on the side. I don't know what's going on. The top doesn't work. The windshield is cracked. You can see his thumb there covering the license plate. Not really sure why people still do that. But you can see again, this car is just terribly, terribly wrong. 2008 Nissan 350Z, 136,000 miles, and they want for $5,000. So as you can see, some mold looks like it's growing on the interior. Someone stole the shift knob. This is how a lot of the examples of 350Zs look like on the market. And I just wanted to put this here to show you guys what not to look for. Don't settle for one of these. This is not worth $5,000 at all. Even though the prices of Zs have started to go up recently, $5,000 for this. This thing is just really beat and rotten looking. Not worth it at all. He says he needs to sell as quick as possible. Bought the car last year and started to have some school. Okay, so, well, I'll give him some slack. This guy doesn't look like he's that old, so, you know, you can't, yeah, I won't give him too much crap for it. But your car is not in the best condition, man. I don't know why you bought this thing. For $5,000 though, I still think that's too much. I'd be more around the $3,000 mark for this car. We have a 2006. This is going to be our next example. This one's going to be an enthusiast. Hold on, give me 1 second. I need to pull up something. I want to make sure that I have everything correct, because these get pretty confusing because they drop trims and they add trims. So we have a 2006. This is going to be a 2006 enthusiast, meaning it has traction control, the VLSD, cruise control, and auto dimming mirrors. So it has some of the sportier functions, but it's not that sporty. This also is an automatic transmission, which is super undesirable for these cars. I've heard that the automatic transmissions are good in terms of they're reliable, they're stout, they last, but they're 5-speed, they're not that fast. And when there's a 6-speed available for a car like this, a 2-seater front engine coupe, you really don't want an automatic transmission if it's not like a dual clutch or something actually performance oriented. But looking at this car, we see it is a 2006. It is an enthusiast, so it's not going to have the rev up engine, but it's still 2006, only a 35th anniversary, and the track had the rev up engine. See if they show the engine bay at all. Nope, but looking at the interior, you know, it doesn't look that bad at all compared to the last one at least. This one looks pretty clean. The seats are in good condition. No leather seats here, as this is an enthusiast model, and you also not going to have any type of nav or anything. But overall, it's not a very bad example, especially for having this many miles, almost 150,000 miles. Not really sure what happened here in terms of the title. They don't say clean title or anything. It might be a dirty title or a rebuilt or a salvaged. I said dirty title, but they're asking $2,600, so you really can't go wrong. I'd say for this, you know, being an automatic, I'd go up to $2,000. I think $2,000 would be a good deal for something like this, and it could be a perfect car that you could turn into a drift build. It'll be a lot of work though, because it is an automatic, but you can still do something with it. Cool. All right, let's move on to our next one. We have a 2004. This is going to be a touring. So this is going to be one of the first touring models. So this came with leather. So I have to read it off this screen. Came with leather, power adjustable seats, Bose stereo, as well as having the optional DVD nav available in automatic and manual. This one is in manual. Let's see if it had the nav option. No nav. As we can see, there's no nav here, but it is a manual. Looks pretty good. Also looks very stock. You have the stock radio, which is pretty cool, especially for something like this, being that in the future, I do believe nice examples of the 350Z will become collector's cars simply because you don't find nice examples at all. But this one only has 41,000 miles. Very clean example. Let's see what the sheet says. Do they say anything? They don't say the package, which is kind of annoying. Oh, I mean, it says right here, touring. I'm chirping. Okay, cool. Touring, all the touring stuff. This one's very clean. One of the cleanest 2004 Zs you'll probably ever find. Manual, low miles. I'd say for this, I'd be willing to go. I mean, this is weird for me to say, but I do appreciate the fact that this has been preserved so well, and I do believe it deserves a high price. I think I'd be willing to go up to 10 grand for this car having 41,000 miles. And I get it, it's 2004, but I do believe that cars, especially the Zs, when they're this clean, can be worth 10 grand, especially with low miles. Moving on to the next one, we have a Nismo example. You can see off the bat, actually, hold on, let me just reset this so you can, we're gonna keep that for a surprise. Anyway, looking at this terrible example, looking at this terrible picture, I don't even notice this light at first, but we can see we have a 2008 Nismo with a cracked light. So off the bat, not looking very good here, but if it's only the light, you can possibly use that for negotiation. We can also see the back window tint is in horrible shape. So that kind of speaks to the rest of the car, which we can see. You don't really want to show the front bumper, which is very concerning, but we can see this carbon fiber hood is not in the best shape. Seen better days. We can also see a fiberglass front splitter here that is unpainted. Not really the best look. Under the hood though, looks pretty normal. This is going to be the HR engine. So you have the dual air intakes, 306 horsepower. See, it's like a purple with a red accented body kit. It just looks like a faded Nismo kit, to be honest. Underneath, we have a custom exhaust job as well. See the Nismo wheels. These are going to be those Rays, the lightweight ones, and the Brembo brakes. So all in all, this car is pretty beat. They don't really say anything about the title. Let's see. Rebuilt title, man. I have to slap myself for that. I didn't even read the description. So we have a rebuilt title Nismo. This is why it's so cheap. The Nismos usually go for like the mid-teens and up. So 118,000 miles for this 2008 Nismo that has been rebuilt. I'd be more around the $6,500 mark for this car. And man, I didn't reset these. We have a final example. This is going to be a 2008 350Z Touring, so meaning it's going to be a luxury example of the 350Z. Let's take a look at the interior specs, see what we're working with in terms of, just color. We already know what it comes with because it's a Touring. You can see those 5-spoke 18-inch wheels. This is a 2008. See what I'm talking about? The leather on the seat. This car has been driven 120,000 miles and it already is wearing like this. The interiors on these Zs, especially with the leather, really don't hold up. You looking, yep, just a lot of wear on the seat. This guy must have had his wallet or like something hard on his back pocket or something scraping it every single time. You think he'd get the hint after like 2 or 3 scrapes. The car, it's not in the best condition. You can see the lights are kind of faded here. It's not really that clean. It looks like it's been used, but it doesn't look like it's been washed that much. There's not much like glossiness to the paint anymore. If you know what I mean, like cars that have been sitting out for a while in the sun, they kind of become almost like a matte color. And this looks like it's on its way there. The white is not as shiny as it really should be. You can kind of see it here, but on the front and rear bumpers especially, you can see the paint fading. But overall, not a bad example. 120,000 miles, they want 10 grand for this car. It's not too far off. It is a Touring, so it is going to be one of the higher spec, and it's a 2008, so it's one of the last 2 model years. However, $10,000 is something I would pay for a pristine car with half the miles, and so I would not be able to pay 10 grand for this. For me, I'd be more closer to the $8,500 mark. Sorry, I'm just reading some chats. Jacob, Anwar, show us some buyable cars. Mobile? Not really sure what you mean by mobile. And what do you mean by buyable cars? This is all buyable. I just missed the mark on these two. It's all good. But we'll get into that. That's Facebook for you. That's that's the Facebook game. You're gonna get some bad ones, some good ones. When we move on to Autotrader and Cargurus, they have better filters, so I can actually filter for the nicer models. Cool. But yeah, that wraps up Facebook. Let's move on to Autotrader and see what we're working with here. Our first example, we have a 2006 350Z with 111,000 miles. They're asking 10.9 for this. Let's take a look. It's going to be this gray color, one of the more popular colors for the 350Z on the 5-spoke 18-inch wheels. It doesn't say what packages it is. Let's take a look at the interior, see what we can find. You can see this is a 2006. It has the DE engine with a single air intake. Just off the bat, what I was talking about earlier, the interiors on these cars wear so bad. This is pretty typical on cars, especially with this amount of miles. 111,000, you'll see all the black plastic just scratched away. See it here too. I don't know if this guy had like long nails or something, but they were scratching everything. It's also an automatic. Really unfortunate, but it is a touring, it looks like, at least because it has the leather seats. Does not have the nav system though. You can also see it as Bose, so this is definitely a touring option car. But yeah, this looks horrible. Like, were they chewing on this? I have no idea. The seats don't look that bad though compared to other seats we've looked at. 111,900 miles, and they want 10.9. They say it's a good price. I disagree. I don't think this car is cosmetically in the best shape to warrant an above 10 grand price, especially for having 111,000 miles. For me, having 111,000 miles and being not in the best cosmetic shape, I'll be willing to go up to 8 grand for this example right here. And moving on to our next one, we have a 2003 Nissan 350Z Enthusiast. This is going to be a first model year enthusiast car. So what the enthusiast did was, it was a base car with added cruise control. It had HID lights, aluminum pedals, auto dimming rearview mirror, the viscous limited slip differential, as well as having traction control, and available in a 6-speed manual or a 5-speed automatic. You can see here, this one is going to be an automatic just based on the description. Scrolling down, we see the color, it says purple. It's going to be on the 17-inch wheels. So looking on the inside, we can see these seats are in really good condition, especially for a 2003. This is pretty insane. This is one of the nicest conditioned seats we've seen so far, and it's a first model year. We were looking at 2008 earlier that was destroyed, and it's a touring package car, which is even better because the leather wears pretty bad on these cars. So very clean example. I'm curious of the mileage on this. I did not actually look at the mileage. We can see it is a DE first model year, one single air intake. Let's see, just reading some chats. Yeah, clean whips. I don't know why they would do that. Shout out to Nissan for making the best decisions. Yeah, y'all are just talking in there. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to everyone in the chat. How many of y'all in there? Hey, shout out to y'all in the chat. What is going on? So back to this one, we see this one is just very clean. One of the cleanest examples we've looked at so far, honestly, in terms of just the leather condition and the interior in general, especially because of 2003. That's really strange. Only 37,000 miles. That's exactly why the car looks so good. And they want 14 grand. Now, this car does look really good. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but it is a 2003 and it's an automatic. I would never recommend paying this much for an automatic because there are definitely a lot of manual ones out there you can get for the same price, if not cheaper. So for this one, having only 37,000 miles and being 2003 enthusiast, I'd be willing to go up to $9,800. I'm not a big fan of 2003. Maybe if it was a 5 or a 6, I could go up to 10. But 5 or a 3 or a 3 or 4, nah. Cool. We're moving on to our next one. We have a 2006 350Z Coupe with the N93 Cargo Convenience Package. Not really too sure what they're talking about here, but it's going to be a red example. Looking at it, we can see it's on the 18-inch 5-spoke wheels. This is a 2006 with a big fart can on the back, which we can't really see right there, with a big fart can on the back. Very typical. We can see it's also smoking. Not a good sign. Hopefully it's not smoking. Hopefully they just started it up and it started smoking just then, or maybe he's revving it during this picture. But smoke is never a good sign on these. It usually could point to your piston rings being bad. That could also come with oil consumption, which is something these cars are known for. So this is not a good sign off the bat. You can see it in all the pictures. It's crazy, actually. What's this pipe? This is the exhaust pipe. So basically this is just like a blast pipe they put on the car, you know, just to look a little cooler, I guess. Not a blast pipe. It's actually, there's a muffler there. It's not a blast pipe, excuse me. But you can see the muffler and the big, well, it looks like a 5-inch pipe. Looks pretty crazy in my opinion. Moving on to the interior, we can see that this should be, let's actually see what trim this is, 2006. So this is either like an enthusiast or a base. I'm guessing it's a base because they don't really say anything, but I'm trying to see if it has cruise control or not. I don't see the cruise control, so I do believe this is base. It is a manual though, so I mean that only could be base. Only bases are manual, or only bases are manual, or only manuals are bases. Wait, the only car. Oh wait, bases only come in manual. There we go. I can't speak. Anyway, we see this one, cloth seats, manual transmission, looks like a base car to me. They don't really talk about any types of packages. You can see, yeah, it doesn't really say anything. It has the HID headlamps, but those came standard on the base with 2006s and up. So this is definitely a base level car. They're asking $73,950, so $7,400, and it is 141,000 miles. Looking at the interior again, we can see that it's not really that bad in terms of condition for having this many miles. So the only thing really that's bad is the steering wheel. We can see some wear here and there, but the seats look overall pretty good. It's not tearing or anything. You don't really see tears too often, but they do happen, so this isn't there just yet. I'd say for this, having 141,000 miles, I'd be willing to go up to $6,500. Moving on to our next example, this is going to be a 2006 Touring with the aerodynamics package. Not really too sure what that is. I don't really see any aerodynamics package on this car. You can see scrolling down, it has the 5-spoke 18-inch wheels. This is a Touring, so it's going to be pretty well equipped. Scrolling through, looking at the interior, this is one of the few interiors we've seen so far that's the white interior, the light interior, not the black interior. We can see it's also a 6-speed manual. This is a Touring, but you don't see the nav, no nav here, but it is option with Bose. That comes standard with the Touring. Not a bad example. This one is actually pretty clean compared to other ones we looked at. No wear on the plastics. That really there's not really any wear on the plastics that we can speak of. They're pretty black compared to the other ones we looked at. What else can we see on this? Nothing really fancy going on with this car. It's really just a clean example. This would be something, obviously it definitely has low miles. Looking here, 36,000 miles. So you know, the price is going to be a little bit higher compared to other examples. However, I do think that something like this will be worth the money in the future. So it's up to you if you want to make that investment. However, 20 grand is way too much for something like this. I would never pay 20 grand for a Z. Hold on, sorry, reading the chat real quick. Y'all are saying, what is that, a pipe? Platinum edition, love it, totally understand. What when started and when ended sticky buttons? I'm not sure what you're talking about. There's no sticky buttons on the Z, but sticky buttons in terms of time period that was really popular. It was like the early 2000s to like the late 2000s, so 2003 to like what 2009-ish. And then for some specialty cars like Ferrari, that carried on to like 2015, 2014 with the 458 because they're just a little bit behind in technology. So yeah, that's the time period that sticky buttons were, if that's what you're asking. I think that's what you're asking. So here, moving on to this one, they want 19.8 for this. It only has 36,000 miles, and it is a really good example in a rare color combo. However, 20 grand is just way too much for a 2006 350Z. That's not a Nismo or even a Grand Touring, because Grand Touring kind of combines a track and a Touring. But for this, I'd be willing to go for having 36,000 miles, I'd be willing to go up to $12,000. Yeah, that's a lot higher than I would ever thought I would go for a Z, but this one is the nicest one we've seen so far. Cool, moving on to our last ad on Autotrader. We have a 2008. This one is going to be a 350Z Grand Touring. So it comes with the lightweight wheels. It also comes with the Brembo brakes. Super, super desirable options. Also in a cool color as well. Let's take a look and see what else we're working with. Whoa. Okay, I'm not really too sure what is going on here. So it has a supercharger kit on it. All right, we're learning that now. So it has a supercharger. I guess a lot of people, I've heard that people do like putting superchargers on this, and I do assume that it probably makes a lot of power. Currently making 380 wheel horsepower, which is not bad for a car of this size. You can see it has coilovers, slotted rotors, red stuff brake pads, dual 4.5-inch catback exhaust, aftermarket stereo. So a lot of stuff going on with this car. It is a supercharged example, so way upgraded compared to stock in terms of power. It is also a Grand Touring, so it comes with the Brembos. So this is just a really loaded example of something you could get. There are cars like these on the market. There are actually a lot of them, more than stock cars. So finding a modified car isn't that hard. I'd say for this being a supercharged example, so meaning that it has some work done to it and we can't say the work directly correlates in terms of price, I'd be willing to go up to $15,500 for this example here. So the most I'd ever spend on the 350Z would be this example because it is a Grand Touring with the lightweight wheels. Well, we're going to speak in hypotheticals because this has been upgraded obviously, but it's a Grand Touring is going to have the lightweight wheels and the Brembo brakes, which are super desirable options. Let's see, clean whips. More, okay, we'll start off with Jacob. He said, so more like Italian cars. I'm talking more, no, I wouldn't say Italian cars. It was just the technology back then. In fact, a lot of the sticky button problems happened on Volkswagen products. Clean Whip said he would just get a G35 coupe over these. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the same car. It all depends on, you know, the styling, but literally this is the exact same car, G35 coupe. I should have just combined them, honestly. They're the exact same platform. Clean Whip said DE like 400 wheel horsepower. HR can get 450 to 500 wheel horsepower on the 93. Oh, nice. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's with a, you're talking with a supercharger or just, yeah, of course with the supercharger. It can't be just on 93. Imagine with the supercharger and on E85, this thing probably rips. Cool. All right, let's get on to the last place we look at Cargurus. Our first example, we have a blue example. Blue is probably one of my favorite colors offered for the 350Z. This is going to be a 2005 350Z Performance. So scrolling through the photos, we can see the condition of the car isn't too bad. It is a Performance. So let me look at the sheet one more time. 2005 Performance. Okay, cool. Yep, so it has the VSC, the VLSD, 18-inch wheels, and only available in manual. So scrolling down, we can see the DE engine in all its glory with its one air intake. Keep scrolling, we can see that this is an automatic with leather. So I don't think that they actually got the trim package right on this car. In fact, I was really curious as to why it said these were the 18s, because these are obviously not the 18s. But here we see that it is an automatic and no performance was available with an automatic. So in my opinion, this would actually be more like a touring. So I think that's what this is, and that's what I'm sticking with. This is a touring, and they show an engine from a completely different Nissan, which is pretty interesting. But it also has the light interior, which I think is really nice on this car simply because it's rarer. It looks more classy, but that's just because of production numbers. Obviously, I'm more of a fan of black interiors, but the white interiors do look a lot more unique, especially on the Z. This one is definitely a touring model, not a performance like it says. It has 129,000 miles and they're asking $9 grand for it. You know, that's not bad at all. I'd say for having this many miles, you know, it's getting up there. So you want to make sure you definitely address all the problems we talked about. But for me, I'd be willing to go up to $7,000 for this car. Possibly even higher. We'll see. Anyway, moving on, we have another 2005 example. This one is going to be an anniversary edition. So this one has the rev up motor, the 300 horsepower from the DE engine. This is the one that consumes the most amount of oil because it is revving higher. Obviously, that's why it's called the rev up than the DE engine. Obviously, the HR came next and they addressed some issues, but it still had that oil consumption problem. You can see this one is gray with the 18-inch 5-spoke wheels. Looking at the brakes, we can see this one also has Brembo brakes. Not sure if these were upgraded or not, but it does. Oh no, this is a 35th anniversary edition. It has Brembo brakes. Actually, let me just restart that. It has the Brembo brakes because it is the anniversary edition. Looking inside, we can see it has leather, manual, and it just overall looks very clean. You can see how the black leather cracks a little bit more, a little bit less desirable for that reason, but this interior looks pretty good overall, not too much wear compared to other ones we looked at. Scrolling down, we can see it has the Bose system. Obviously, this is going to be a Grand Touring, so this is pretty much the best of both worlds. You get some of the track package, you get the touring package, all in one. You couldn't really find that combination in any other package besides the Grand Touring. In my opinion, the Grand Touring is the most desirable package because it comes with those Brembos. Brembos are super, super desirable. The way I judge whether or not an option is desirable is if you can add it on at a later time and the cost of adding it on at a later time. The Brembo brakes are going to be expensive aftermarket, and so that's why they are desirable. Scrolling down, yep, this has the heated seats and everything, but again, it is a Grand Touring. It has literally everything that you could possibly get, plus more. So what are they asking for this car? This is a 2005 35th anniversary. I keep calling it, wow, I called it Grand Touring like 35 times. Holy crap. This is a 35th anniversary edition, not a Grand Touring. Gosh. Anyway, the Grand Touring is what the 35th anniversary edition became in 2006 plus, so it's the same thing, but the this one being a 2005 is an anniversary edition, not a Grand Touring. But scrolling through these photos, seeing what we see, very clean example for having this many miles, 80,000 miles on this car, which isn't a low amount of miles, but this car looks very clean compared to other ones. It's not the cleanest car, it's probably like 8/10 of the way there. But I'd say having 79,000 miles and being a 35th anniversary edition, I'd be willing to go up to $11,000. Cool. All right, what are you guys saying? Sorry, this thing does not. I need to do open a separate channel for tuning options because this is really interesting me. Yeah, if I were to open up a tuning channel, that would probably take about 10 times more time in terms of research than this because of all the aftermarket parts. But I do agree that talking more about tuning is something I should do because a lot of people do care about the tuning aspects of cars and that's why they buy them. And I've been thinking about it. It's just like, for me, I know a lot of the stuff about OEM cars because all that information is public and published. But when it comes to tuning, it all really depends on each individual car, so it's harder to make general statements about the cars. But I could include some of the more popular tuning options people go with depending on the car in terms of just an extra segment to the show. So yeah, that's a good idea. But yeah, moving on to our next example, we have a 2008. So this is going to be in that final model span of years, 2008, 2009. This is going to be a touring roadster. So not the top level, but it's going to be a mid-level in terms of the three trims that were available for the Roadster in 2008. You had I believe you had the Enthusiast, the Touring, and the Grand Touring. Yep, Enthusiast, Touring, and Grand Touring. I'll just show you real quick. Yep, these are going to be those three options. So this is a middle of the road car right here. It's also a convertible, but it's also an automatic. Super, super undesirable. This whole automatic system just looks ugly to me. I hate looking at it. It's just, I just imagine like a stick shift should be there. Plus, this is also convertible, so you're definitely going to see more interior wear than normal compared to a coupe, just simply because of the elements. The sun is going to be baking down on these seats, and you can tell the seats are cracking. Not too much care has gone into this leather, but again, it does have a good amount of miles. Let's see how many miles it has real quick. It has 100,000 miles, so it's not going to be in perfect condition, but it's not the worst either. Not too many pictures here. We can see that nothing has been scratched, nothing's peeling. Not sure if this is like a new style of paint that doesn't peel, or this person just didn't have those long, crazy nails that the other person had. But this car overall is pretty clean. It's a convertible, so not really the most desirable for most people. However, the example is clean. Let's see what they're asking in terms of price. $9 grand for this car. It has 100,000 miles and it is a 2008. So it has some stuff going for it. It's not a base level Enthusiast. It is a touring, so it's a middle of the road example. They want $9 grand, 100,000 miles. That's not too bad for being a 2008. I'd say for me though, I'd be willing to go up to $7,000. Cool. Moving on to our second to last ad, we can see off the bat, these pictures are horrible. Oh, they're just really tall. They don't fit. Okay, cool. So we have a 350Z Nismo. One of the better examples we've seen today. We can see it has a Nismo body kit, different front bumper. It has side skirts as well as having a different rear bumper and a Nismo spoiler. Looking at the interior, we can see this is the Nismo interior. It's going to be a dual red and black two-tone. Well, on the seats, the rest of the interior is going to be black, but this is very clean, very nice example. Especially if you're having the cloth seats, you'd think that they wear a little bit more, but most people usually like to take care of their Nismos. So they pretty much always look like this, except for the example we looked at earlier, but that one was a salvage title car. Very, very clean, almost no wear. You still have warning stickers everywhere. See this big Nismo rear bumper. This thing's very unique and very, it adds a lot of road presence to the car. Scrolling down, let's see how many miles. 48,000 miles. So this car has been driven a little bit, but it's still in the lower end. It's under 50 grand, and they're asking $23,000. You know, this is a really good example, probably one of the nicest examples of a Nismo you can find. It has all the stickers still there. You don't really see any wear on the seats at all. It doesn't even look like someone sat in the passenger seat, which is amazing. I say for me, I'd be willing to go up to $16,500 for this example right here. And then moving on to our final ad, we have a 2004. This is going to be a 350Z Touring. So a first model years, 2003, 2004 Touring. So it's going to be one of the more loaded examples. See if it's a manual or automatic. This one is going to be an automatic, unfortunately, but it does have leather seats. It looks like the seat has actually been redone or is a newer seat when compared to this other seat. You can see the difference in these seats. One looks like it had the bottom half redone. The other one looks pretty stock. And yeah, you can tell the difference. I don't know why they didn't do the other one. It looks pretty bad in my opinion. Or it just might be a newer seat from a facelifted car. That might be it too. But yeah, looking at this, I don't really want to look at it, to be honest. It's automatic. It's I mean, it's a Touring, but it's just not the best spec. It doesn't look like these wheels. I'm not really sure who chromed them, or these came chrome from the factory. I don't know. But overall, I mean, I guess it's a clean car, but that interior seat kind of bugs me. I don't like this at all. This looks really bad. And this, I don't know why they didn't fix the other seat. $9 grand for this. It has 116,000 miles and it's a 2004. Not worth $9 grand at all. This is not the best cosmetic condition car. You could have one that looks a lot better for cheaper than this. For 116,000 miles, you're asking 10 grand. I'd be around the $6,500 mark because I really don't like this one. Cool. All right. So that wraps up the ads for today. Hope you guys learned a lot about this car. For me, I'd recommend just getting the HR engine. So sticking to the facelift and up, I believe that's like 2006 to 2009. Stick with that. You're going to have the better car. It's going to have the better seats, as you could see. It's also going to have a better feel on the interior. If you want to get something that's strictly for drifting and you're going to beat up, yeah, get a DE engine. They're more forgiving for tuning because you're able to, I believe, having 2 air intakes, you have 2 MAV sensors and all that. Having one single system with DE makes it a lot easier to tune. So a lot of people will go that route if you're going for a super cool drift build. But if you just want something that's a collector, always get some of the last model years because those are going to be, you know, some of the nicer examples out there, and they're going to have all the features standard that come standard because things do change over the years. In terms of trims that I recommend, I say the Grand Touring is going to be my favorite trim level of all because it simply has everything that I would want personally. It doesn't have some of the extreme track stuff like the underbody aero or the super lightweight raise that the Nismo has, but it does have the Brembo brakes. It does have all the traction control, the VLSD, but it also includes the Bose system as well as leather seats. So the Grand Touring, in my opinion, is the best overall package for the Z, as long as you get it in manual. If you get an automatic, you might as well just get a Touring or something else, because why are you getting these performance parts for an automatic Z? Doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, if you can find a Grand Touring, highly suggest getting that. Also suggest getting the 35th anniversary. However, those might be a little bit more pricey because they only came for 1 year. So make sure that you do your research on these cars. Don't buy a car that's been beat. Make sure that you take it to get a PPI. I know these are cheaper cars and a lot of people don't do PPIs on stuff like this, but if you're getting a car that's been known for being beat on and then you look at the car in person and you're not too sure, a PPI will only help you because what's that, 100, 200 bucks? That can save you thousands in the long run. Highly suggest you get a PPI for performance cars in general. For daily cars, you don't have to. I mean, it's not going to be pushed that hard, so you can probably get away with more with more of a dailyable car. But this car is a performance car and is used as such, and people take advantage of the fact that these cars, they drive pretty well for what they are and they make pretty good power for their size. So you just want to make sure that you get everything checked out. I recommend staying away from cars that have been tuned or modified, but again, that's going to be most of the cars on the market. especially ones that are on the lower price range. Those are all going to be cars that have either been tuned, modified, and now for sale, or they've been reversed. So you always want to make sure to see if the car has been reversed, make sure nothing looks out of place and everything looks pretty OEM in the engine bay. But other than that, I really don't have any more advice to give y'all. Just try to get a clean one. Don't get one that's like torn in terms of the interior. Get one that's been taken care of. There's plenty out there to pick from, so I'm sure you'll be able to find the right one for you. But yeah, if you guys don't have any more questions, shout out to the chat talking to themselves today. It's like hard for me to read, but I got it up here. What are you guys saying? Yeah, air-to-air supercharger. You guys are talking about stuff that I don't even know about. Shout out to y'all. Yeah, I don't know too much about the tuning capability or like tuning cars like that. Supercharged Soho motor supports NC, makes A2A kit using a Stilling kit. Yeah, I'm with you, Jacob. I don't know what that means, but I'm here for it, man. Clean Whips, maybe you can teach us about some of these aftermarket parts. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. I don't really have anything else to say. We're gonna come back tomorrow with I forget what we're doing tomorrow, but I don't have my book here. I don't know where it's at, but we have a card tomorrow. It's going to be on the cheaper end, so something like this. We're gonna try to go for more cheaper cars this week and build our way back up into more exotic cars later, just so we can cover a broad range of vehicles on the channel. But that pretty much wraps it up. Shout out to Clean Whips. Shout out to Jacob Black. Shout out to everyone else in the chat. Shout out to the Ninja Watchers just sitting back quietly, not saying anything, just soaking information. Shout out to y'all as well. I will see you guys tomorrow with yet another car buyer's guide. So until then, be safe. Have a good one.